Okay, so I want to talk about three things. One about Chiron wound, second about suffering, and third, wide use of astrology. Like, you don't need to worry about your actual placements and how you can still use astrology to help you understand something you're struggling with. So first, the wound. The wound of Chiron, in my experience and my understanding and my studies and my, knowledge of astrology and life, is essentially a wound that was very deep and big. So think of a knife wound that that happens to when you may be cutting vegetables for lunch or whatever, but it's accidentally, and I've certainly had them happen to me. So it can really go deep, even if it's like a small piece of like a tip of the knife, it can go deep. So imagine something like that, but talking emotionally, psychologically, but it's just left. So if you think of that wound, that are just physical wound, if you leave that wound unattended, you don't disinfect it straight away, you don't clean it up straight away, and then keep cleaning it up till it heals, you will end up with a sepsis, and it can cost you your life. But there is a big piece of road to travel between sepsis and costing your life, and it's that ending your life is probably in the far future of your actual deathbed anyway, but you'll be with that wound as well, you'll be going. So why I'm telling you about this is to know where your Chiron is, but not just, it's not like I said about placement necessarily, that too, but if anything in your life that you feel like it's an infested, festering wound. So this is not a pain. This is not a pain. Pain is the original wound when you got cut. This is, I don't have words for it. It's just knowing that it's poison and it's eating you from inside and it's infecting you. It's like not an antibody. I'm really not good with medicine. Like a virus. Yeah, but you can feel it. It's like it's causing you. You feel ill, and Chiron is often actually associated with a physical illness, and it's a shamanic archetype, archetype of the shaman, and sometimes the illness that takes you, to the brink of your deathbed or whatever, and then you kind of maybe die even, and then come back to life, is the kind of ultimately what makes you a shaman kind of thing. I mean, I'm really simplifying something far more profound and complex, but just for the sake of now and here. So my point is, anything in life that actually isn't that clear-cut pain, it's just, it hurts and you know why it hurts and it's there and it hurts, and that's not your Chiron. Chiron is this you stop being able to move because this infection is grown so big that you can't actually move in the area, your body, yeah? So it's not about pain, it's just this horrible feeling that you have actually done something wrong, but not in a judgmental, way, in a sense that you haven't attended to the wound, and it's now costing you far too much than if you attended to it at a time. What does the attending of it means? It's actually this process of cleaning it up, and all these processes are excruciatingly, it's like burning pain, when you're trying to clean up something that's infested, yeah? And then at the end of it, what you're left with is a scar that will not heal. So that's why this whole wounded healer, this whole storyline around Chiron is, in my understanding, my experience, or my view, is a bit misguided or mistold. The wound heals. The wound heals, all right, but the scar stays. So it's like a reminder of the work you haven't done, right? So that's Chiron. That's why Chiron is amazing. And if I were you, I'd be so stoked about approaching my Chiron return whenever that is for you, in 50 years, 30 or less. The second piece I want to talk about suffering. So this is the piece about Chiron in 12th or Chiron in Pisces. specifically, technically speaking, astrologically and technically, right? But I also want to encourage you, and this is the third piece, so I'm going to bring them together, to whenever you have a problem with the theme, right? I would actually not look to your chart first. So the theme of suffering, any issue you have with suffering, like typically, whatever, let's just keep it simple. I would go to Pisces. Pisces is suffering. Chiron is not suffering. Pisces is suffering. Neptune is suffering. 12th house is suffering. And this is collective suffering in particular. Yeah, that's what I kind of use the word suffering for, such a big, epic scale of the whole humanity and the global pandemic and global racism and global horrors, right? And wrongnesses and injustices. So that's kind of why I didn't define it at the beginning. To me, suffering speaks only of those such big things. So if you want to understand your relationship with your suffering and maybe improve it or something, or just the suffering of the collective, maybe read and try to understand Pisces, Neptune and 12th house. Read everything that's written about the three, particularly Neptune, then Pisces, then 12th house. Actually, I'm trying to order them maybe that they're not really, there is no hierarchy. I think they're equally important, just on different flavors. So that's the third piece about how to use astrology broadly. Don't worry if you don't have Chiron in Pisces, or you don't have anything in Pisces, or you have Neptune somewhere and you have Pisces somewhere, but you might not have any planets there, or your Neptune could be in a different sign, most likely. So that's irrelevant. It's just, do you see what I'm saying? There is a theme in your life that's causing you're stumbling over it. Identify the astrology of it, which is what my tutorials are going to be about. I'll be launching that very soon, in a couple of weeks. And then research and try to get to understand the archetype. And that will give you so much wisdom about how to handle yourself within those themes, or in relation to those themes that are currently bothering you. And the third piece is the wound of suffering, or rather Chiron in Pisces, Chiron in 12th house, like I say. But essentially the wound of suffering is that the suffering of others is unbearable. That's the shadow expression of suffering and how we deal with it. Meaning, imagine yourself in front of a person deeply suffering about something. I'm not going to even list examples, just take your pick. World is far too, sadly full with them. And then imagine yourself just being there, not even for them, just being in their presence while they are in the midst of their suffering. It's palpable for whatever reason, and whatever the suffering is, they're in it. But you are there, you're just there. You're doing nothing. You're not jumping to save them. You're not jumping to help them. And I'm obviously not, at this stage, I'm not talking about, if actually your help would save their life. Fair enough, that's a different story. But I'm just mean like suffering that you can't actually alleviate for them. Basically, you can't solve them. It's just something that's their fate or their choice or whatever that has brought them to that point. Can you imagine that? I mean, that is the toughest thing to do, at least for me, and I'm pretty sure for many of us, or if not all of us. But that is the wound, the shadow expression of dealing with this suffering, is to jump in and try to save it, and try to better it, and try to make it better, to try to alleviate it, and save the person, like I say. And I have spent a long time, like years, reading about this, I keep going, nah, really? No, come on, I need to, is this really so? Because I knew that this is true, this is right, but it feels like such a heresy for Pluto in Virgo generation particularly. Like, how not to help? But the dynamic of that dynamic rather, never seems to actually improve, like clean up the wound. It really doesn't. It just puts another bandage. And surface level, you know how again, back to the wound, you kind of put something on and the redness goes because you soothed something there. The redness may go, the blueness or whatever, you know, the color it is, grayness, blah. Anyway, it's gone, but the swelling is there. And that is my experience, 51. And I've been dealing with this for the reasons of my personal story and whatever, more or less since I can remember. There's been suffering, like epic kind of suffering around me. Not ever that it was endangering my life, or later or maybe a little bit, but no. My point is, this is, I'm talking from 51 years of experience, that jumping in to save, jumping in to try to hold someone while they're crumbling as a way of preventing the crumbling, it really is, it's the same as when you're just, you know, it feels good, definitely. You feel like you've done a good thing, but what you've done is, like I say, you just kind of soothed the surface, but the wound is underneath still festering and you haven't really cleaned it up. Yeah, I think at this point I'll leave it at that. I don't know how long this video has been, but please do think about this. This is, in my view, how we heal the world, is by not trying to heal each other, really. Just yourself.